Hello and welcome to the Beef Edge, the Teagasc Beef Podcast, for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Catherine Egan, and on this week's episode, I'm joined by Teagasc Researcher Colin Byrne to get an update on the maternal herd in Teagasc Grange. Colin, you're very welcome. Can you give an overview of the herd and the background to it?
The maternal herd, I suppose, was set up a number of years ago. Its main aim, I suppose, was originally working on validation of the Eurostar replacement index. So it's made up of a 90 cow spring calving herd. And then I suppose within that 90 cows, they're split into three groups. So the average replacement index are your 3-star cows with early and late maturing breeds within that. Then high replacement index, so 5-star cows. And then there's also a high replacement index first cross dairy cows, so Limb Friesian and Angus Friesian. So generally, all the cows are inseminated to the same Charolais bull, and then for the past number of years, all the heifers have been inseminated to the same Hereford bull, with 100% of these heifers calving at 24 months of age. I suppose the main aim, as I said, originally was validation of the Eurostar replacement index, but also but now, and as it's moved forward anyway, it's more around, I suppose, providing information to ICBF on difficult to measure traits. So these are traits that, look, it's just impossible to get a direct measurement of them on a farm. So something like dry matter intake of grass is fairly laborious to record these direct measurements. And then also something like milk yield of the cow. So we do a direct milk yield measurement of the cow. And then this can feed back into the I suppose, the selection processes and our genomic evaluations. More recently then, I suppose, or more recently being this year then, we've also started to record some greenhouse gas emissions from these cows. So I suppose a range of genetics in these cows. And again, this information will get fed back into ICBF.
That's great, Colin. And a lot of farmers would have visited Grange back in July for the open day for Beef 2022. How does the herd differ from the Derry Patrick herd?
The Derry Patrick herd has been very much on working a little bit more towards demonstration, whereas this herd is what we call a little bit more component and a little bit more research focused than demonstration, So I suppose you probably hear about it a little bit less, I suppose, but it is there working on these things that I just spoke about there.
And how would the genetics differ from the two herds?
So I suppose in terms of genetics, we probably have a little bit more of a range in that we are comparing the high to the average, whereas the Derry Patrick would always focus on more on 5-star only cows, so as high replacement index as they can. In terms of, I suppose, breed makeup and that, they're reasonably similar in that, there's a little bit less maybe first cross dairy cows in the maternal herd, and the Derry Patrick up until now has been 50-50 split between the two.
This year has been a good year all round. How have the weanlings performed on the farm?
Yes, so look, we've been reasonably happy with weaning. We weaned there, I suppose, everyone's weaned about a month now, I suppose. So for our bull calves, they weighed 299 kgs at weaning, having done 1.25 kg per day. And then the heifers weaned at 280 kgs, having done 1.16 kg per day. So we were pretty happy with those, I suppose, overall.
And how will they be managed from now and over the winter period?
As of, I suppose, at the moment, they're still at grass. Grass is still kind of there is still some growth there, and as long as ground holds up, we'll leave them out. But they're most likely going to be housed, I suppose, within the week. And then when they go in, they'll go on silage. So I suppose our silage results are back, and they'll be going on to a 76% DMD silage, and they'll all get about 1 kg of concentrates per head per day. So we'd be hoping that they'll be on target then to grow at in around 0.5, 0.6 kg over the winter.
All the cows are housed at the moment, Colin. How did they scan this year and how did they perform?
Yeah, so look, cows are all housed. I suppose we originally housed them and fed them straw to try and dry them off, with the plan that maybe they might get another week or so out before they had to be housed for the winter. But then with the rain that came, we probably just couldn't have the heavier animals out, so they've stayed in. So look, we scanned reasonably well this year. 90% scanned in calf. Cows are in now, so they'll stay on a 67% dry matter digestibility silage for the winter, as will the in-calf heifers. So the in-calf heifers, I suppose to note, we'd always pen them separately to the cows, just to, I suppose, avoid bullying and that, for the moment they are that little bit smaller and bullying is fairly likely to occur. And then I suppose in all these, then we normally measure body condition score every 3 to 4 weeks, just to make sure that there's no major drop-offs in it. And if we had to take corrective action, I suppose if it drops off, you might have to go with a better quality silage. And then if we felt the cows were getting a little bit too fat, then we might, we don't have any worse quality silage, but we might mix straw or something in with the silage just to dilute down the quality, so that we can, so they don't get too fat and we don't have, I suppose, issues in coming up to calving and that,
Yeah, and you probably are looking at body condition score on cows and pinning accordingly as well, pre-calving.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll normally do our best. We'll pen, I suppose, a mix between body condition score and also calving date. So exactly as you said, where cows are the cows in better condition score, we'll try to have them grouped reasonably well together. And then also, I suppose, the other thing to be mindful of is their actual calving date. So some of the cows that are not going to be calving till much later in the spring, you just, I suppose, need to be careful what can happen to those, because obviously with this year we're kind of on track to have maybe 12 to 13 week calving spread. So those that are calving 12 weeks later, they can go one or two ways. Either, they can either get very, very fat if they're doing well on the silage, or they could start to lose condition if they're not doing as well on the silage.
That's great, Colin. I suppose in relation to herd health, what's the plan for the herd for the winter?
So I suppose in terms of, with the weanlings anyway, I suppose that the health, I suppose, for those starts well before weaning, so we would have given booster vaccines for pneumonia and IBR a month before they were weaned. And then I suppose, depending on fecal egg tests and that, now coming up shortly, they'll be dosed and then housed accordingly. Then for the cows, they'll generally get a housing dose as well, and then that in general, that's normally where we go with those.
And what are the main parasites that you're looking at treating this winter?
So look, I suppose the main ones we'd normally react to are AHI slaughter reports in terms of what they are. So at the minute, we're probably going to be looking towards liver fluke. Is one that I suppose pops up quite a lot, and that's probably one of the ones that we're going to be targeting, I think, just looking at most recent reports. And
from the results to date of the herd, what have the main findings been?
So I suppose in general terms, if we just look at, I suppose, some of the stuff that's been maybe worked on a little bit more from previous years. Obviously this year I don't have results from this year just gone, in terms of where in terms of where we are. But even if we just look at the performance last year, we would have seen that, I suppose, the beef cross dairy cows, they weaned, I suppose, a heavier weanling, and their pre-weaning average daily gain was probably that little bit higher, and that, I suppose, was a result then again of increased milk yield. So when we did our milk yield milk yield measurements, these cows generally did have a higher milk yield. That led to, I suppose, the higher average daily gain, and then also the higher weaning weight. As a result of that, then these animals, I suppose, had a higher weaning efficiency percentage. So they would have had up on 50% weaning efficiency, whereas the high replacement index suckler sourced animals would have been around 43%. So I suppose 42 was normally our target. So they were still on that. That was the average cows, or the cows with the lower genetic merit, were only weaning about 40% of their body weight. So that's probably a little bit below target on where we are. But I suppose if we look even within then the suckler sourced animals, the average versus high, we do see I suppose improved performance. And I'm just talking about the weaning period here for last year. We do see improved weaning performance of the animals from the cows with the higher genetic merit.
Colin, you mentioned earlier the greenhouse gas emission experiments that are being carried out. What can farmers look forward to getting an update from in the future?
Plus, this herd is, I suppose, more or less winding down this year, and as we move forward, there'll be a little bit more of a focus, I suppose, on the environmental impact of these suckler herds. So I suppose for this experiment, we'll be, I suppose, assessing the effects of genetic merit on greenhouse gas emissions in grass-based suckler cows. So this is an area, I suppose, that there's very little information on worldwide, and Ireland, with its unique, I suppose, grass-based system, we're fairly well positioned to do this. The other part then, I suppose, of the next experiments going forward will also be looking at the role of selecting for genetic traits such as reduced age at first calving, and also looking at how pre-weaning nutrition can, I suppose, both help reduce the age of puberty and thus the age at first calving in late mature and suckler heifers, and then also looking at how this will also help reduce the age at slaughter in these animals. So I suppose the finishability of these animals as they come up for slaughter between 20 to 23 months of age.
That's great, Colin. Thanks very much for the update on the maternal herd in Grange.
Thanks, Catherine.
That's all for this week's episode, and my thanks to Colin for joining me on the show. You can catch up on all other shows and interviews from the Beef Edge podcast on the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie, or you can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss a show. For all other updates from our beef programme, keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Until next time, I'm Catherine Egan, and thanks for listening.